Hey Aquarius, I got some oracle messages for you here today. And before I turned on the camera, my meditation was really fun. I saw a giant pine tree. It wasn't like quite like an evergreen or a redwood. It was like a spruce, but it was very, very big, and it produced like thousands of pine cones, but in a very cartoony, video gamey kind of way, where they're all just popping out of the tree and just kind of flying all over the forest, and they're making that funny, cartoony, poppy sound, like just like thousands of them everywhere. And they landed all over, and they grew into like all sorts of stuff. A lot of them did grow into, fruitful bushes and plants and things like that, but others grew into like scones and pastries and pies and children's toys, like those colored rings that like get progressively smaller that like a kid can just put on that pole, that little pole. Like there's something like that, like a little plastic rocking horse. And there's all sorts of stuff. There's even a full-sized functional space shuttle, like an actual honest to God Cape Canaveral space shuttle. And in this forest was just filling with all this like fun stuff. It was like just fun stuff, things that people take an interest in, things that people like to use, like to dream about, like to create, all the fun stuff. It was just a forest growing into fun stuff, and the treetops were like moving, kind of like they were alive, and it felt like they were dancing, and it just had this feeling of like happiness, like the forest itself was feeling happy. It was very fun. And I walked around a little bit to try and see all this stuff. And yeah, just like G.I. Joes and race cars, and there was like chefs, like a kitchen, like a whole kitchen's worth of stuff that a chef and bakers and people like that would use. A chemistry set, like a little kid's chemistry set. Tennis rackets and sports equipment. It went on and on. And something that came to mind was that, these were coming from pine cones. And the pine cone is symbolic of the pineal gland, or what is sort of like the physical bodily part of our third eye, right? Or the Agna chakra. And it literally kind of looks like a pine cone. That's why it's symbolized as such. And you can find pine cones in front of all sorts of temples and churches and stuff like that all around the world because of this. And it, the third eye is basically a part of our, like, the human makeup that sort of manifests our reality, or it's the part of ourselves that like kind of creates the reality in which we live, or at least allows us to co-create in this reality. And boy, that was like a seriously creative thing. It was like all the creative fun stuff that people use. So getting in touch with your third eye right now, learning how it works, stop drinking the fluoride, things like that, maybe doing the Marma points. You know what, I'll just show it to you right now. So here's an exercise you can do. There's a pressure point here, right here. This is gonna be kind of goofy, right under your nose, and then right on your bottom row of teeth on the gums there. And then while gently pressing down and putting some good pressure on these parts of your face, you can just make a humming sound, like and try and imagine that vibration vibrating on your pineal gland. Those are called Marma points. I might have gotten them slightly mistaken, but it's M-A-R-M-A points, if you want to look it up and find out exactly where they are and what kind of pressure you want to put on them. But that's a super effective exercise. I used to do it all the time in my 20s. I should start doing it again. And that can help, clear up your pineal gland, decalcify it, get it just moving again and excreting properly, right? Because it's just, it excretes very, very, very important hormones that help us with mood enhancement and productive activity and creative thinking and vision. It enhances our five senses and enhances our extra senses, our astral senses and spiritual senses. And that helps us create a much more interesting life for ourselves. It helps us to be more effective co-creators. Then I pulled an I Ching hexagram for you. 17, following, with the 5th changing line. So following changes to taking action. Maybe the numbers 17 and 51 are important for you at this time. But here, this is, with having that changing line at the 5th place, we have a yang element at a yang place and a yin element at a yin place, and they are both considered correct. And because the 5th one is changing, it's like changing into yin. So we have a good strong yang, which corresponds with a correct yin. And so we have this yin and yang energy that are like perfectly vibing. This is like a really good yin-yang type hexagram, following, turning into taking action. It's like a masculine and a feminine energy that are just in perfect balance, and being like creative and productive with each other. It's just an excellent situation that bodes well. There's like an interesting thing here where like new decisions at this time shouldn't be made, or not necessarily shouldn't, I guess the word is need not be made, because there are decisions that were already made in the past which would be really good to act on now. Perhaps you've made some decisions in the past, or a resolution like, I want to do this. And for whatever reason, maybe you haven't really been doing it. You know, there's all sorts of reasons why we might not. We're very, very busy. Maybe we're a little depressed. Maybe we're a little uncertain of whether it will be a fruitful venture or not, and if it's worth our time. There's so many, there's a million reasons not to do something, right? But all you need is one good reason to do it. So find that good reason. And with good conduct and sincerity in that, you can achieve excellence in this endeavor, in whatever it is you set your mind to. And I got this funny feeling, or like it wasn't really part of the meditation, it was while I was pulling the hexagram, but just this idea that like two people following each other. Like, I know that sounds kind of contradictory, like if you're both following each other, who's leading? Well, it's two people who are being led by their innocent desire to just live a happy life, to live with fulfilling activity every day. And finally, when like one person follows that desire and is like, you know what, screw this, I'm going to do what makes me happy. I'm going to do what I want to do. And then the other person is like, oh, yeah, I'm going to do it too. And then like that enables the two of you to like inspire each other and keep it going. And so like if one day one of you maybe drops some slack in that inspiration department, the other one picks it up by being inspired. And so when two people follow each other because they're led by their desire to be happy, there's more supportive energy there. The desire is like, it's doubled, it's a little stronger, and it can work overtime and for longer. And that can lead to like the breakthrough of where like, oh wow, you're actually walking the path now that you set out for yourself. So there's already this decision that was made in the past at some point. And now you have to take even just the tiniest step to just get going on that path. Just take a bunch of tiny steps, a few tiny steps a week, something like that. But like actually do it, like psych yourself into actually doing it instead of like talking yourself out of it, or, letting your tiredness get the better of you, or letting those negative feelings say, what's the point? I don't want to do it. No, just make sure you can set aside some time, even if it's just 5 minutes, to just do something with it. Anything at all, even if it's scribbling down an idea for 30 seconds for like what you could do, or writing a list of something, or who knows what it could be. At least 5 minutes a day. And you'll find like just taking those tiny steps, but doing it consistently and following that innocent desire to like get this going, those tiny steps will like unlock this wellspring within you that it'll be joyous just taking those tiny steps, you'll feel like, I'm really doing this. Like I'm actually doing it. Even if it was just spending 5 minutes journaling about it, you still spent 5 minutes journaling about it. That's better than, you know, turning on Netflix or whatever, whatever else we would do. And you'll feel satisfied by it, and you'll start to realize like, oh, this is unlocking my own inner fulfillment. Like you don't want to think of the thing as your source of fulfillment, because now you're just creating a dependency on something outside of yourself that like, oh, I have to do this now in order to be fulfilled. It's not going to be like that. It's going to just like unlock your sense of, oh, this is how you do fulfilling things. This is how I can feel fulfilled by doing things. And I don't depend on doing those things. I can just unlock this wellspring of fulfilling joyfulness that then enables me to do these things and to take joy in them and to want to do them. And like maybe this choice, this thing you want to do, you might have put too many, you might have kind of put it up on a pedestal, and it sort of became like this unobtainable thing, or maybe you expect too much from it. Or maybe it's not expecting too much. Maybe it could actually provide what you expect, but like, because you expect so much from it, you're sort of afraid of it. You're afraid of doing it. You're afraid of actually achieving it, because like, what if it does meet my expectations? What if it really does change my life in all these ways? And there's a part of ourselves that there's a part of ourselves that's afraid of success, you know? And we tell ourselves it's because we're afraid of failure. We're like, oh, I'm not going to do this or put my time into it because it's not worth it, or I'm not going to achieve it and I'm going to fail at it and that's going to suck. But the thing is that that's not true. Like, because if you don't do it, you've also failed at it. So on a deep, deep subconscious level, you're definitely not afraid of failure, because every time you don't take a step toward it, you're failing at doing it. So you're clearly not afraid of failing at doing it. You fail at doing it every time you don't do it. So you're really afraid of succeeding at it. And once you realize that, it's so much easier to start doing it, because then you start thinking about it in that way. Like, oh, if I'm afraid of success, now I know how to deal with that. Now I know what the actual problem is. I'm afraid of success, so these are the ways I can deal with my fear of success. And, you know, maybe there are books out there, maybe there's some YouTube videos out there, maybe there's like some form of therapy that can help, maybe there's, I don't know what. Or maybe just thinking about it is going to be enough for you. It'll be different for all of you. But when you frame the problem in that way, the solution becomes much more clear. And it's a much better problem to have. Realizing that you're afraid of success is much better than being afraid of failure. And you'll realize that you're not afraid of failure. So your problem isn't insurmountable. It just needs to be reframed. So I'm going to expand on this reading for you, Aquarius. I'm going to pull some cards. Let's see. What does Aquarius need to know? That's spinning right in the middle. That is pointing at the alchemical symbol for air. It's a triangle with a line through the center, a horizontal line. Air, it's thoughts. Don't let thoughts get in your own way. The Knight of Pentacles wants to pop out. Didn't fall, but it wanted to peek out and say, hello, take the steps. Might feel slow and plodding, but that's good because it's stable. You know, the Knight of Pentacles is a very stable, slow horse rider. But it's because he knows he's going to get where he's going, and he wants to expend his energy where it's needed, and he's a marathon walker, not a 100-meter sprinter. Like, this is long-term thinking here. What does Aquarius need to know? This one wants to stay in my hands. The devil. Diavolo. Il diavolo. So here, this is being all up in your head. This coming out on the air, alchemical symbol for air. This is, your thoughts are trapping you. Again, I said it earlier, there are always a million reasons not to do something. And I feel like you're really good at thinking about those million reasons. You could probably think of 10 million. And it's not going to help you. It's really not going to help you thinking that way. Because, like, you only need a few good reasons. You only need one good reason to do it. So just find that one good reason. And to hell with the 10 million others. Who cares about all the reasons why you shouldn't do something, or all the ways in which you can fail, or all all that sort of stuff. It's not productive. That's just, you're chaining yourself to a life you don't want to live. You're chaining yourself to feelings and ideas that you don't need to have, to beliefs that you don't need, that don't serve you anymore. You can easily, well, I won't say easily, it's a simple process, not necessarily an easy process, but it's a simple process to change our thinking in this regard. And I think you will if you focus on the fact that your desires to live a happy life are rooted in innocence and purity. You just want to be happy and be doing activities that you find fulfilling and worth your time. And there's a lot in society that tells us that we shouldn't feel that way, especially in the United States, especially in the northeastern United States. I know I'm really narrowing this down now, but we have especially around this Rust Belt, where it's just filled with that old school, we call it the puritanical work ethic. There was a certain subgroup of Europeans who moved to this part of the world back in the 16th and 17th centuries, and they believed work itself is a virtue, just working. You know, they're the people who came up with that phrase, idle hands are the devil's plaything, which I think is absolute nonsense. You should be allowed to enjoy your life and relax, for crying out loud. But you know, we're taught work in and of itself is a virtue. I don't necessarily believe that's true. I believe that working can be good and is important, but working for the sake of working, just so that you are busy, I think is kind of nonsense, to be perfectly honest with you. And that it's really difficult to get over that because we have so much social pressure in our world. Like, everyone always loves talking about how busy they are. You know, when you catch up with some people you haven't seen in a while, everyone kind of brags about how much they're up to. You know, they're just, oh man, I got a lot going on. I'm busy. I'm doing this side hustle and my job is like this and I'm working on that. And people ask me and I'm like, oh, you know, I do some stuff. And I had to get over that feeling of keeping out of those conversations, because I don't want to lie and say oh, I'm super busy when I'm actually not. So I used to just stay out of those conversations, and I hate catching up with people for that reason, because I don't want to talk about that stuff. These days I don't give a damn. But so changing that mentality and being no, I can do what I want to do. I don't care what the rest of society thinks. Forget these people and their so-called work ethic. I'm gonna change my work ethic into a work ethic that suits me, not society. I don't care if my work ethic suits society. Because a lot of that, work ethic thing, that whole, everybody wants you to punch a clock, everybody wants you to get a normal job or whatever, because they want you to do something for them. They want you to be the waiter that serves them their food. They want you to be the sewage cleaner that cleans out their sewers and keeps their toilets flushing. They want you to do something for society because they benefit. We all benefit from each other with the jobs that we do. And these jobs, sure, they're important if you feel called to do them. And if you're good at them and you love doing it, it's fantastic because I love benefiting people and receiving benefit from people. It's part of culture, it's part of society. But expecting it in this sort of cruel way that modern people expect it, and if you're not doing something for them or for society, they kind of look down upon you. That mentality in my mind is it's poisonous. Leave these people alone. If they don't want to work, so what? If they want to do something else that you don't think is worth it. As a musician, I used to get this all the time growing up, is people looking at me with disdain because, I'm not a construction worker. I'm a musician. They think I don't do anything for them, right? That I don't benefit society because I just play and write music and I perform music for people, and that's not a real service for society. That's some extraneous thing that's stupid. But I don't care. I think it's good for culture to have musicians and to perform music for people. I believe it's a service, but most people don't in this world, But maybe there's something like that you want to do, and you're afraid of doing it because you're afraid of what society will think. And society's fears may have become your own. Society's angry demands may have become your own. You're probably like, no, I should be more productive. I should I should knuckle down and become like a sewage maintenance worker. It's good for society. And even though you don't want to do it, like you're not a hydro engineer. There are people who love working in engineering with pipes and water and stuff, and they're really good at sewage maintenance, and they're called to do it. And like, we have those people. They're doing it. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. Do what you want. The world will keep spinning. Trust me, it'll be okay. So get rid of those thoughts that are telling you what you want to do is useless or stupid or whatever. It's not going to serve you. I'm going to pull another card for you, Aquarius. And when you start doing that, when you change your mentality, you'll find that it does actually benefit society, the thing you want to do, because you're inspiring people. You're inspiring people to follow their hearts. They see you. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It matters that you did it. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It matters that you chose to do it and that you actually walk the walk and you're walking the path. Everyone's going to look at you and be like, oh, right. I'm going to walk my path too. I'm going to do what I want to do because this person did what they want to do. And so even if you're doing something that's quote unquote useless, as long as you're following your heart's desire, you are doing something very useful because you're showing other people how to live in innocence and purity and to do what brings them happiness. This one. Yeah, here we go. Confusion. Tumultu in the Latin. Here we got some fishies swimming around, not knowing what's going on. I think we got like some octopuses and stuffs. It's what is that? Is that flounder? I can't identify these mosaic fish. But yeah, floundering around. But yeah, this is just that same energy. This is just, maybe you just don't know how to get started. You don't know what the first step should be. And thinking in a linear way about everything. I know when we think in a linear way, we think, okay, I got to start here and do this, and then after this step is accomplished, then I can move on to this, and after that step is accomplished, then I can move on to this. And sometimes that works, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes we need to think in a non-linear way and think, well, I'm gonna start in the middle, or I'm just gonna do something. I'm just gonna throw something together with the resources that I have at hand. Linear thinking can oftentimes begin with, well, first I need this amount of money. After I've set aside this amount of money, then I can begin on doing that. Well, I've noticed with that type of thinking that you never really get started even after you have that amount of money, because you'll start to think like, oh, well, it's not quite enough. I don't feel quite secure with that amount. Maybe I should increase the amount, then I can get started. And you always push the goalpost back. Or maybe something happens, like, God forbid you have a medical bill or car troubles. Oh my God, me and my friends, it's just like every time my friends get some money together, the automobile industry steals it from them. It's like the automobile industry has its own corporate gods that have been created that are like, oh, you have your finances in order? I'm gonna blow up your spark plugs. I'm gonna break your front axle now. And it's just like, are you serious? So that money, that step one, it might never be there. And if that's the case, then you're never going to take step one. So start with step two, start with step three. Or if you feel like you need this type of equipment or that type of thing, well, maybe you don't. Maybe you have something on hand that you can already use. Most of us have pen and paper. Even if you need something else besides that, for the real production to get going, like you can begin somewhere else with the tools at hand. We all have, well, God, I didn't mean to say we all have an index finger. Not all of us do, unfortunately. But we've all got a way, essentially, to even draw stuff in the dirt. Like there's something we can do. There's always something we can do, even if it's only in our imagination to get started. So there's to just say, no, you know what? I'm not confused about where to start. There is no confusion here. Just like banish the thought. Like, instead of being like, oh, how do I do this? Don't ask, how can I do this? Just ask, what can I do today? Like, not how, but let's I'm gonna do something today, so what is it? You know, no matter what, I'm going to get something done on this path today. And I don't care about the how and the wherefore, I just care about what activity is it. Just choose the activity and do it, and get rid of the thinking about it. That will eliminate the confusion. And when you take those tiny steps, and you take whatever tiny steps those are, or that one tiny step, whatever it is, that's when that wellspring of like the joyful feeling of doing a fulfilling activity is gonna like just pop open, and it won't matter what the activity is. But again, it's the fact that you are doing anything on that path. We'll banish the confusion. All right, I'm gonna pull one last token for you, Aquarius. One last thing to round this all out. What does Aquarius need to know? This guy's hovering around the brim. Oh, this guy wants to fall out too. Huh. Two animals. We got the fox and the elephant. So yeah, and the numbers, what was that, 3? Yeah, just the number 3. The fox doesn't have a number. So yeah, I'm getting something from the past, the decision that was made, a memory about it. Perhaps there was a time where you were taking actions on this path, and you're like, yeah, this feels right. You know, remember those times? And this fox is gonna keep nipping at your heels. This is kind of a trickster. And he is not gonna leave you alone. He's gonna wanna constantly battle you and be in your thoughts. He's gonna nag at you for a while, and you're just gonna have to deal with this annoying little barking fox skipping around and jumping around your backyard and not leaving you alone. But it's just a fox. They're not that threatening, to a human at least. So you're gonna have like these little micro deceptions and relapses in this negative type of thinking, and those little things are gonna keep bugging you for a little while. But you are on that. This also reminds me of like the Knight of Pentacles. I don't know if you've the southbound pachyderm. It's part of a joke. Looking at the north end side of a southbound pachyderm, but it's also a saying of like progressing toward the warmth and the sunlight, slowly but with strength and determination, with remembering why you're walking down that path. You know, the south is considered like the warm, sunny spot of the world, right? The analogical direction of happiness. So taking steps, and then this little annoying fox, just like imagine, you know, what can a fox do to an elephant? Not much. But the other thing about the fox is, I know each time I pull this, I like to mention its trickster aspects, but the fox is also like a guide. You know, there's always the concept of follow the dog. You see this in a lot of mythology and in a lot of cultures and in a lot of mystery traditions and occult traditions, where there's like a dog that can be followed to a treasure, let's say. And the treasure is usually some form of knowledge. We also have Sirius, the dog star, who is always nipping at the heels of Orion. So the constellation of Orion plus the star of Sirius is actually the Fool card in the tarot. One of the secret interpretations of the Fool card is that it's actually Orion and Sirius. I don't know what that has to do with this reading, but I just felt like someone needed to hear that. And it can lead us, like a trickster is sometimes a good guy that uses deception and comedy and humor and trickery to make us learn lessons. You know, sometimes it's better to be tricked by a friendly fox-like trickster and to learn a lesson about how that trickery works than to not learn that lesson and be tricked by a much worse thing but using the same type of trickery, right? So like you can learn lessons of trickery by falling for tricks, but they're like innocent tricks that don't really harm us, but they use the same mechanism that worse tricksters use, so you become immune to it. It's like being inoculated to deception. So there are things in your mind that can deceive and try to steer you on the wrong path, or try to keep you in like, they're just trying to convince you that the rut you're stuck in is fine. Like, oh, just accept it. that type of trickery, that, you know, the devil energy and the confusion that came out before, that is trying to hold you back from walking this innocent, joyful path. So there's going to be this little trickster that's going to show you all those deceptive mind games that you play with yourself. It's going to reveal the mechanisms of those deceitful mind games, and you're going to understand your mind better. And you'll be able, like the southbound pachyderm, to walk slowly and surely with strength and straightness and a good direction south toward the sunlight, while this little fox is like teaching you, okay, this is how you're tricking yourself here and there. This is how you tricked yourself over here and there. And you'll learn about how your mind works in that way, and basically expand your awareness and your capabilities and be able to think more clearly, and you won't fall prey to those mind games anymore that we play with ourselves. All right, Aquarius, I think that's it. I think that's where the Oracle and I are going to leave it for you here tonight. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. I always appreciate you stopping by and spending the time. I wish you all the best, and I'll see you next time.